Okay, so I had this conversation with the Lord last night. This conversation had to deal with life and death. I was reminded about a man who had passed away a few years ago, and I did his funeral. But during his time, he had struggled to stand in a place with God, encouraged by God, holding on to God, speaking all the things that he feels God would be pleased with, and himself for saying them. But his heart inside of him was bitter and angry towards his family, towards his kids, towards his wife, towards life, because he felt he was dealt a hard life, that his wife always ran away, came and go as she pleased, that the children hated him because he was a hard man when they were growing up, because no one had learned forgiveness. And in his heart, though he spoke the God words, though he said the things he should, though in his mind he believed God and trusted in God, his heart was hard. And I asked the Lord, as I was reminded about this man, seeing him on his deathbed, he said he loved you. Did he find your love on the other side? If someone says that they love God, will you find love on the other side of this life, on the other side of this shell? Because we cannot only say we love him and not prove it through this life. This is the only place we have. These are our proving grounds. But we have to understand what God is doing. If we have joy in our heart, will we not have joy on the other side? If we have peace in our heart, will not we receive peace on the other side? Is God looking at the things that are on the inside, or he's looking at the things on the outside? The actions, the works that we tell ourselves, the knowledge and the understanding that we have. Do you think all of that can save you when God is looking at the heart of a man? God is looking within, and he will teach us from within. We cannot keep doing the outward things and think that all these outward things will be taken over the other side. We must have true peace. We must have true love. Much as true understanding of God. Because whatever God is doing in our life, he's doing it to change us for good. It's not about changing for the moment, but changing for eternity. Because that's where it waits, people. It doesn't wait here. It waits there for us. And if we're going to love God, we're going to love God because there it is. His love is there. His love, it burns in here, but it is reflected there. And we must stand in that place with him. We have to see who we are in God, and we have to see what God sees about us so that we can become great in his eyes. No more all we know, all we understand, all we have, all we do. It's not about any of that. It is what we know we have with God and what we see, he sees. With that, I opened my word and I end up at 1 Samuel. Let's start at 1 Samuel chapter 16. We'll start there. I want you to see something. We're going to talk about from verse 1 to verse 7 about David anointed king. Now, as you folks turn their heads up a little bit, what happened is Saul has greatly disappointed God. But God knew he was going to do that because that was in his heart. Greed and envies, right? And pride. And God told the people that your king would treat you like this and destroy you and bring all of this upon you. But they wanted a king. So God gave them somebody for who on the outside looked like a king. For he stood head and shoulders above everybody else. And when they saw him, they thought he was a perfect king. So God anointed him, Saul, as king to give to the people what they wanted in their hearts. They wanted a king, but they don't know what a king really means because God was king. And they couldn't receive God as king. So God gave them a man who wasn't a true king in his heart. But God was searching and seeking, and he knew there was somebody out there who was after God's heart, who had a heart just like God, for the people, for life. And he chose someone like David. In 1 Samuel 16, 1 through 7, let me read. It says, Now the Lord said to Samuel, How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among the sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hears of it, he will kill me. But the Lord said, Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I named to you. So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Do you come peaceably? And he said, Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So it was, when they came, that he looked at Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before me. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Let's stop. Now I brought this up, God brought this up because he's saying something to us. He is looking at the heart. Now if God is looking at the hearts of man, will he not teach the heart? If God was looking at the outside appearance, will he not teach you outside works? But God is not. He's saying what is done within is brought with you. These works, these understandings, these knowledges cannot go with you into the kingdom. Only what's in your heart. And it'll carry you through. God was looking for a man who had a heart after him. A man who understood God in a different way. Not like everybody else. Not because of sacrifices. Not because of looks. But Samuel, who knew who God was. Who understood God from a different place. Looked at Eliab, the oldest boy of Jesse. And said, and saw the beauty, just like Saul, just like the people, looking at the outward appearance, and saw the beauty and the strength and the courage on an outside shell. And God tells Samuel, do not look at his appearance or his physical stature. And that's how we see ourselves when we look at the mirror. When we see ourselves in the sight of God, we look at our appearance that we think God sees. We look at our stature that we think God understands. For the Lord does not see man as man sees. And God does not see us the way we see us. God does not hear us the way we hear us. God is as for man looks at the outward appearance. Yes, we do. We look at everything we do. We look at everything we understand. We look at everything that we're supposed to do. And we look at that as a testimony of what we have with God. God is saying, no, the Lord looks at the heart. He looks at what's there that's driving you to do those things. He's not looking at your work. He's not looking at your understanding. He's not looking at the knowledge, the amount you read, the amount you pray, the amount you come to church. He's looking at the heart that yearns for him, that cries for him, that hungers and thirsts for him. He's looking for the one like David who is willing to sacrifice everything so his brothers can have a place at the table with the prophet of God. Yet he will go outside and take care of the sheep for his father and his brothers because he honors them that way. They deserve it because he's the youngest. He doesn't deserve to be among them. But yet he is the one God wants because he has that kind of heart, willing to surrender, willing to give it up for somebody else's glory, willing to stand in that place. But most of us are looking at ourselves so much like Eliab, looking like Samuel, outward appearance, looking at our walk with God and thinking we deserve this. We deserve to stand there. But God is looking for the man who says, no, you do. You deserve to stand there. I will humble myself. You rise up. You work. You move forward. You do God's will. Yet God is looking at you because he's saying, that's what you need so I can work in you. Because I'm going to teach you something that I cannot teach your brothers. I'm going to teach you something that no one else will learn because you are looking at me from the heart and understanding the way I work in your life. I'm not trying to change you like changing your clothes. I'm trying to give you a heart that's after me, a heart that I have, so we understand each other. We don't understand God from our heart. We understand God from our head. We understand God from our emotions. We understand God from there. So we cry out to God and we look at our weaknesses and we look at a God who's strong and we say, make me strong like you. And God says, you are. You just don't see it. You really don't see it, do you? But God is teaching us something. And we're going to learn that from the life of David. We go to chapter 17 of 1 Samuel. I'm going to read from verse 20. When David's father asked him to take the food to his brothers at the battlefield against the Philistines. From verse 20. So David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and took the things and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to fight and shouting for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had drawn up in the battle array, army against army. And David left the supplies in the hands of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. Then, as he talked with them, there was a champion, a Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines. And he spoke according to the same words. So David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich with great riches, will give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and take away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in this manner, saying, so it shall be it done for the man who kills him. Now Eliab, you remember Eliab, the one that Samuel looked at and said, surely this is a king. But God said, no, I have refused him. This is why God refused him. Because Eliab, the oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was aroused against David. Hey, he was an angry guy. God don't need a king who's angry in his heart. Because if he's angry in his heart, he's going to be angry at everybody. But he's angry at David, the youngest boy. And that brings it out of him. David brought that out of him. This is what God saw of Eliab. That's why Eliab can never be. Because God sees that anger in his heart. Moving on. And he said, why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and your insolence of your heart. For you have come down to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? Then he turned from him toward another and said the same thing. And these people answered him as the first ones did. Now, when the words of David were heard, they reported them to Saul. And he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took the lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard, and struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defiled the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, the Lord be with you. Let's stop. You know why I brought this? It's because of the lion, the bear, and the Philistine. You know why? Because if you listen to what's happening with David, David is a young man, still keeping sheep, right? He's not old enough to even be in the army, but he shows up. And he hears what happens, and he sees the fear of the soldiers, okay? He sees the fear of the soldiers. So when it comes time for him to stand up, his brother comes against him because immediately David becomes indignant. Why are you guys afraid? Does the king have to bribe you to serve him? Does a king have to really bribe you for you to stand up for the kingdom? I mean, does God really have to bless you or bribe you to make you love him, to stand up for him? For many people, they're waiting for the blessing or waiting for something before they become the servant of God, before they step into a greater place. No different than waiting for that blessing to come so that you can stand up against your Philistine. But David says, what is this? We stand up. But his words to his brother caught my eye when he said, and David said, what have I done now? Is there not a cause? Is there not a reason that you are in the predicament that you're in now? Is there not a cause for you to be sick, a cause for you to be poor, a cause for you to be heartbroken, a cause for you to be angry? Is there not a cause? Of course there is. Because when David goes on and talks to Saul, he talks about the lion, the bear, and the Philistine. Why? Because the lion is the first one to come. Now, there was something in David, because when the lion first came, there wasn't something before the lion to teach David to not be afraid of the lion. No, there was something inside of David that made him go after that lion. You got to understand this. Courage was burning in David's heart. Strength was in his heart. Love for God was in his heart. That lion meant nothing. That he was indignant that the lion should take from him, as we should be when our adversary comes against us, that they take from us. But he rose up against it, and he went against that lion, and he killed the lion. But the lion didn't make him strong to kill the bear. No, that courage for killing that lion made him stronger. So when the bear came, the bear was no different than the lion in the way. That courage got stronger. God was teaching him in his heart, be courageous, be brave, come against anything, because I'm preparing you for a greater enemy than the lion and the bear. And you gotta have the power. You gotta have the strength in your heart to face your enemy. So if you can face that lion with the courage and the love you have for me, now let's go after this bear. And David said, the lion and the bear, God delivered him from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. Now he looks at this Philistine, not with fear like the army, but with the same eye that says, I have courage. I have strength, because God has taught me through the lion and the bear to stand strong, that he is with me, that I am strong, that I can do anything. Is there not a cause for you to be where you're at, so that you can see that courage in you, that you can see that bravery, that you can see that strength? Are you looking at the outward appearances of strength and courage, and that's why you can't overcome the adversary in your heart? Is it not you within that's tearing yourself down? Is not God teaching you that through your own adversities, that there is power in you, or you wouldn't be in it? That there is strength in you that he can see that you cannot? Yet you fight against your adversary with tears and fears. And you call out to God to win the battle. When he says, you got me, you've already won that battle. Don't you see it? Aren't you indignant that they should dare come against you? Are you so afraid? Are you so weak that you keep doing the outward things and the heart never changes? That your doubts and your fears have overcome you and has become your greatest adversity? It is not the things that you're facing in life. It is not the poverty, the illnesses, or the weight of lack. It is you. You who cannot see what's in your own heart, who cannot see that God is teaching you from there. There is a cause, he says. There is a cause for this, that others may see the strength of the Lord and the Spirit within, that they may feel the power of God when you speak and when you stand. It's not about you looking a certain way. It's about you standing in this courage, that everyone may find courage and strength and feel the power of God when you move. So David stood up and told Saul, this Philistine has nothing, because the courage in me and the strength and the power in me is from God. And these Philistines mean nothing to God. So it should mean nothing to you. Yet you do make it something. And you make it stronger than the God. And you speak the words of strength. And you hear and you learn and you read and you pray. But your heart cries and says it doesn't. It's weak. It doesn't believe. It's not strong enough. Because this and your outward appearance, always looking at yourself like Samuel looking at Eliab, thinking that you are perfect. Is this outward perfection going to go with you when you cross over? Is not God going to take that courage, that strength, and that love when he takes you? Of course he is. Isn't that what's going to carry you through? Did not God honor David after everything by naming a city after him and bringing his only son through the bloodline in honor of the man who loved God with all his heart? Did not God do that? Of course he did. Because God saw something in David and David saw something in David. What do you see? Look at your life and look what you've been doing. Look at the things that you've been saying. Hear yourself, because you don't understand what you've done. You think that if you stand strong, look strong, read enough, pray enough, go to church enough, say enough to people that you believe in God, that you will believe it and that you will become strong. But yet you cry and you weep and you show your weakness, because that comes from the heart. Yet you prove God right when he said defilement comes from within. What is God to do? God was teaching David through the lion and the bear to look at what's in his heart. What's in your heart? I sat there on the table telling Mike about what God was giving me. And I looked at him, I said, Mike, what's in your wallet? Like the commercial. Why? Because what's in your wallet says your eyes are always looking at what's in your world. Always looking at what you got in your pocket. Always looking at what you got in your life. This is what it says. But what's in your heart? What's there? Is there any love? Is there any joy? Is there any peace? Because that's all God's going to take. He's not taking your worldly goods and your actions. God looks at only the heart. And whatever's there comes with you. And if there is no love, there will be no love there. And if there is no joy, there will be no joy. And if there is no strength and courage, there will be none there also. Because that's the only thing that can go with you. And I realized what God was saying, that we are weak because we look to those things that we think we do not have. But the truth is we have it all. The kingdom of heaven dwells in us. The power of God burns in us. Is not the power and the courage and the strength of God stronger than we are? Did not God look upon Gideon in Judges? When he looked at Gideon, he says, oh man of valor. And Gideon looked at him indignant and says, if I am a man of valor and if you are a God, what's happening to Israel? And God says, I want you to take this that is in you and go and save my people. I'm going to use you. God did not look at his weakness. God did not look at his stature in life. God did not look at what he knew. God looked at what was in his heart. And there was a burning in there for justice. And God took him because of that. God didn't look that he was afraid that he made God turn the fleece wet and the ground dry. And then he had God do it again the opposite way because of his own fears. But God was doing it. God was doing it for him because God was bringing out that courage, bringing out that valor that burns, because Gideon could not see it, but God could. And God is doing everything in Gideon's life to bring that valor out, to make him a strong warrior that God could see. So with you is the same. God, just like with David, the lion and bear, bringing out that good, that strength, that courage that burns inside of him. And he's doing it to you, yet you allow sicknesses, poverty, and family to destroy what God is building. Cast it away and look at the power of God, the love that burns for him. Look at the strength that wants to stand before him. Look at the power that burns in you, and know that you can overcome any adversity, any weakness, any doubt, any fear, because God is over it all. He has overcome it all, and he will overcome it again. You have nothing to fear, yet you do. And every lion and every bear has torn you down. Yet God says, stop looking at your own outward appearance and look at yourself the way I see you. I see strength. I see glory. I see power and valor. I see courage. None of it can control you. None of it. I love what he's saying. God is good to us. He will never leave us nor forsake us, but we do when we turn away from the heart. And we turn to the idols, the minds, the thoughts, the knowledges. God says, I do not look at outward appearances. None of it. I look at the heart, the intention of men. In Jeremiah, you don't have to go, just a couple of verses, write it down, 17, in 9 and 10. This is what he said. When God says Judah's sin is going to be punished, God told them, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Get this. Our heart is wicked above all things because it causes us to look at our world. It does, because we are focused and it becomes our heart. The heart itself cannot deceive you. We deceive our own hearts because of worldly things. It is desperate. We are desperate and we are wicked because we look at this world. How can you know your own heart when you are crying for the things of this world and the life, the outward shell of your life? He says it is and wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to giving every man according to his way, according to the fruits of his doing. This is what he does. God looks at your heart. He looks at your mind, the intentions behind it. And anything that is there, he is going to give it to you. So say that you are weak within your heart, that you're crying out to God for deliverance, that you're looking for direction, that you are caught in this whirlwind and in this snare of your own depressions, your own darknesses. Will God not give you your darknesses because that's what you want? Will he not give it to you because you're desperate? Will he give you deliverance when you cling to despair? You cling to it and you make it you. Is God supposed to bring the deliverance when you can't let despair go? How is he supposed to do that? When you cling to it and you live in it and you become it and it's in your heart. When God is trying to teach you, I am stronger, He cannot pull that away from you when you won't open your hands. He cannot take away your despair and your doubt if you cannot open your hearts. God is saying, that's why you're deceived. Because that's what the heart does. It becomes desperate. It becomes desperate that you yourself don't know what you're doing. But the Lord says, I'm searching your heart. I'm looking, I can see. But I also test your mind, the intention behind what's in that heart. If these two agree, will not you receive according to your own thoughts, your own heart? Say you're in your heart, I got to be strong, I got to stand strong. Then you start doing the works of that strength instead of allowing that strength burn and automatically you move in that courage. Are you trying to create a delusion of courage and it's really not there? Does not God test your own knowledge against you so that you reap what you sow? Of course He does, because He doesn't want us to be deceived. He wants us to be strong. And yet, when David stood with Saul, the deception was there. Saul may have been king, but he was the delusion hiding in his tent. So much so that if you continue to read, that when David said, and he told David, go, the Lord be with you, he gave David his armor. His armor and his sword. Why? Because he wanted David to look like him. So when David stood up before the giant, the people would say, look what Saul has done. That's how desperate he was. But David said, no, this is not mine. I have not tested. I will not wear this. And he went with what God gave him, what God taught him to use. Slingshots and rocks. Simple, yeah? But he was so good at it because he said, this is what the Lord has given to me, and this is my weapon of choice. This is what He has taught me because I used it against the bear and the lion, and it had not failed me, and it is my courage, it is my strength. When you know, nothing can take it away from you. You are stronger than this. Why deceive ourselves and still be ensnared by our weaknesses? Why do we keep telling ourselves that we are strong because we know, but in reality we're not growing? The lion, the bear is exactly that. Our fears and our doubts. And then we have the great giant, our adversary, standing behind, says, hey, you cannot defeat your desperation. You cannot defeat your sadness and your sorrows. I come with your doubts and your fears, and you can't defeat me if you can't defeat them. You think you can be strong and allow these kind of weaknesses to dwell? Darkness and light has no place in the hearts of man. If God is doing great things in you, He's going to do great things. But He can't do it if you're not in agreement with it. You have to believe He's going to do great things. Jeremiah knows what he's saying, and God is saying it to Judah. Your correction is coming because I am testing your heart. I am testing your minds. I am looking because you've been desperate. And because of that desperation, you want to run from me when I tell you to stay. You want to go. And your enemy will follow you by the sword if you run from me. But they couldn't find the strength to stay. And so they ran. And they were chased by the sword. In Proverbs, you don't have to go, chapter 4, when he talks about the security and wisdom, chapter 4, Proverbs 20 to 27. Here's what he says, my son. This is what wisdom says. This is what God says to the wise preacher. Listen, my son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear and my sayings. Do not let them depart from your eyes. Keep them in the midst of your heart. For they are life to those who find them and health to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Put away from you the deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. The wise preacher saying, keep your heart with all diligence. Hold tight your confidence. Don't let anything sway you from knowing what God can do and what God is about to do. For men lose their way because they sway to the left. He said, stay on the path. Keep your eyelids right before you. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Look straight ahead because God is right there. You are following Him. Your strength is before you. Your strength is not to the left, not to the right. Stay the course, stay the path. Stay and keep your eyes straight ahead. Look at the God you serve. Look to the kingdom you walk in. Do not look to the things of this world. Yet we do It says, put away the deceitful mouth. Put away. Stop lying. Stop swearing. Stop taking false vows. Stop saying what is not true and what is not real. Put away perverse lips far from you. But keep your heart with all diligence. Fight for it, people. Stand in it. God is not asking you to keep your life. He's saying keep your heart. Keep your heart, because it is what's going to change you. It's what's going to change you. Everybody, let's close in Matthew 15. In Matthew 15, I'm going to read from verse 1 to verse 20. I'm going to talk about how the defilement comes from within. Now remember, prior to this, he was saying, if you read in chapter 5, murder begins in the heart. Adultery begins in the heart. Everything begins in the heart, people, because that's where the darkness lies. From verse 1 to verse 10, chapter 15 of Matthew, it says, and the scribes and the Pharisees who were from Jerusalem came to Jesus, saying, why do your disciples transgress the traditions of the elders? For they do not wash their hands, and they eat their bread. He answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandments of God because of your traditions? For God commanded, saying, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, whoever says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift to God, then he need not honor his mother or father or mother. Thus you have made the commandments of God of no effect by your traditions. Hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, these people draw near to me with their mouths and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of man. Let's stop. You see this? This is what we do to ourselves. We draw near to God with our lips, with our actions, yeah? We draw near to him with our mouth. We honor him with our lips. We tell God all these loving things. We give to God all of these things, but yet our hearts are so far away because we don't look there. Nothing comes from there. Everything comes from what we know to do, what we know to say. And it's ritual. It's something that we do because we feel that it's the right thing. We feel that it's right. You know what? You have delusioned and deceived yourself to thinking that this action you've been taking over and over and over and over again is the right thing to do. It doesn't work. You're still in the same place. Have you not learned that it doesn't work? But you keep saying the same thing because it feels good, doesn't it? You keep saying the same thing in prayer because it sounds good, doesn't it? You think God's impressed with the outward things? With the words you speak or the way you bow? No. He's looking into the heart of the man. Why you say what you say. How you say it means nothing. Why you say it means everything. Is there love? Is there fire? Is there spirit? What is coming out of you? Is it showing the God relationship that you have with him? Or is it just showing your vanity? Is it showing your delusion? Let's not be so desperate that we start saying things that we cannot keep. He goes on to say from verse 10, continue reading. When he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear and understand. Not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man. Then his disciples came and said to him, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying? But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into a ditch. And Peter answered and said to him, explain this parable to us. Jesus said, are you also still without understanding? That you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, theft, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. All your actions, all these things that you're doing, it's only defiling you because that's what's coming out of you. God is saying it is not those things that will defile you. It's not the hardness. No, it is what's coming out of you that's driving you to do the things that you're doing. Even the weaknesses. It's coming out of you. Don't you see the courage and the strength? Have you not learned that there is power within? How much times does God have to say that you are a warrior, that you have power, that you stand in His glory? How much times does God have to tell you that you are His? You are not the world's, but we still look to the world and think it is our power and our strength. God says, look within. Look within your own hearts and learn from me. I am teaching you, but not outwardly, inwardly. I want you to see what I see. And God sees greatness. God sees power. God sees courage. Do you see it? Because if you don't see it, you would always fall into your despair, fall into your weaknesses, fall into the things that you have no control of, and everybody will control you. No, we are stronger and mightier in God. He compels us. He moves us. He is our power and our strength. We will not be defiled by our own thoughts, but we will know God and move because, and speak because we love Him. And that will never defile us. Yet that, like the good preacher said, it is your power, it is your healing. It will bring strength and courage to your soul, and it will heal your flesh because you believe from there. Don't believe outwardly things, holding on to delusions and assumptions of God working, and then in your heart you're crying and weeping and weak. This is nothing. This is the delusion. This is the truth. The one that cries, the one that is weak, the one that's afraid, the one that's desperate. That's the truth. That's who you are. You're a desperate man and a desperate woman. You're a weak man and a weak woman because you believe in your heart that you are. But God is saying you're not. I see courage and valor. I see strength and power because I burn there. I know I see your love. I feel your love. See it for what it is. Trust in it because it is so. And your life will be mine. This woman just, remember the woman with the 2 mites? Now the woman with the 2 mites gave everything. Jesus watched her. This poor woman who had nothing, people. She was destitute. She's a widow. She has no husband, no children, no one taking care of her. And look at her life. Look at yours compared to hers. She had nothing. No money, no house, no family, nothing. She was alone. Yet she went to church and she heard the sermon that Jesus spoke. And she stood up and her heart burned for God. It did not see her poverty. It did not see her weakness. It did not see that there was demise, that there was nothing for her. What she saw was the God that burned inside of her. And she reached into her pocket and she pulled out 2 mites. The last. What it said was, Jesus said, she didn't give 2 mites. She gave her livelihood, meaning she gave her everything. Everything that makes her live. Everything that would give her life. Everything that would make her shine. Everything that she would think. And we all think everything that you would think is your power, is your deliverance. You would think is what's guiding you. You would think that it would feed you. You would think she gave everything. Those 2 mites represented her last meal. It represented her rent. It represented her payments. It represented everything. But she didn't care because she loved God. And she took what was left and she said, He deserves my life. And my life is in these 2 mites. As your life is in your wallet. As your life is in your sickness. As your life is in your desperation. Your life is in that 2 mites. Are you going to hold on to it? Are you going to let it go and say, God is God over this all? And just let it go. Let it go. And let Him take you for Himself and learn that kind of power. That alone Jesus points out because that's power, people. That's the power of the love of God. That she was not afraid. She wasn't looking at the future. She was looking only straight ahead at the God she was pleading to. The God that she believed in. The God that deserved her life. And it represented 2 mites. That's how much her life was worth. 2 mites. But she said, I'm more than that. Because I'm more in God than God is in me. We are more than conquerors, people. And no one can separate us from the love of God. Except 2 mites. 2 mites. Because we see the mites as our life. As our livelihood. As our direction. We look at the giants in our life and we see fears and doubts. We cower. We look at our lease. We look at our life and we see less instead of abundance. It's because we look into our own minds and our own hearts and we see what we do not have. Yet only those who love God will see what they have. Having eyes, you will see. And having lips, you will proclaim. Because in your heart there is great love for God. He will not listen to somebody like Pharisees who proclaim and talk about the things of God and yet do not serve Him with such a heart. God says no. They defile God and they turn His commandments into nothing. They learned nothing. Yet their traditions have separated them from God. And our ways and our weaknesses and our traditions and our rituals have separated us from God. But not this day. This day is a day we change. This day we will see the power and the strength of the kingdom within. We shall see the courage and the bravery that's inside of us. We will face every adversity no matter what it is because we know God is with us. We are more than conquerors. We will rise above this world as Jesus did. We shall stand up and we will conquer our life and everything that's in it because this Philistine of a life will not control the army that stands up for God. We shall stand up to it because that's who we are in Him. And we shall stand there with the power and the strength and the love of God that burns. And we shall walk in that love. And we shall continue our life in it. We shall not look at what we do not have. We shall not look at what we are weak in. We shall not look at our despairs. But we will look at the God who burns. And we will let Him burn. And we will feed that fire. And we will stand in that truth. And we will let go our might. And we will do what is right. And He will call us men and women of valor. You may not see it now. But God sees. What's in your heart? I pray it's the fire that burns as it burns in mine. Because there is great glory that we want to give God. Don't just say you want to glorify Him. Glorify Him. Amen? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just want to praise You and thank You for Your loving kindness. Thank You, my Lord, for this day, Your power and Your strength, my Lord. This day You have spoken to us, my Lord. And I pray that Your people will rise up and let this world go and see it for what it is. It is training grounds, my Lord, for You see something greater in us. For we shall rise up. We shall become stronger. We shall not be afraid. Yes, we will grow from the lion to the bear, then the Philistine. And there are ways You must take us. But we shall not be afraid because You are stronger in us. And we shall stand up. And we shall rise above, and we shall proclaim Your holy name. For this we are in is for Your glory. I thank You for what You have spoken. May Your people continue in it. And through You, my Lord, may they find the power and the strength that Your kingdom provides. Glory, honor, and praise belongs to You always and forever. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.